Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the planning board meeting, regular meeting today in the council chambers. Of today's date is May 16th. Since we have a quorum, I'd like to call to order. And could everybody stand and do a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all. I'd like to read the following statement as we do every planning board meeting. Does any member of the planning board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? If so, please state at this time.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not.
I do not. Okay, thank you. We're here to amend or approve. Do I hear a motion to either one, to amend or approve?
I'd like to perhaps suggest two slight amendments. The first of which is perhaps to get an update on the recruitment of the ETJ rep from Lisa. And then second, I don't know if we want to consider this now or table it until the next meeting. Many months ago, we made the decision that in the case of preliminary plats, we would continue to do that as presented by staff to the planning board for approval, but that final plats would be handled by staff. Now that we no longer have a full-time planning administrator, I'd like staff to perhaps give us a review if it might be more appropriate to reinstate that stage where a final plat is brought before the planning board before its approval. I realize that raises some issues, but I think it's something we might want to take a look at.
I do not have a problem adding the ETJ to new business item number 2.
Okay.
And I would suggest that we would hold up on your second request and add it to the next meeting.
Yeah. And that will give staff an opportunity to make a recommendation before our next
I'm
meeting.
good with that.
Okay. All right. So someone has to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve is amended.
I second.
All in
right,
favor?
first.
Aye.
Aye.
Public comments. This is public comments only about the old business and new business on the agenda. Anybody? Nope. Okay, not hearing any. Let's go on to old business. The UDO text amendment, Article 4, open space requirements, and we'll go to Wes McLeod on it.
Thank you, Mr.
No, just Sarah, it's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an item regarding the amendment of open space requirements that, of course, came about due to some questions of interpretation from the Angels Trace conditional zoning project. In particular, it had to do with the minimum width of that required open space and the usableness of it. The board felt it
Excuse me.
prudent to make sure that those spaces were clearly had to be 50 foot all the way around, length, width, depth, however you want to look at it. And as a result of that, we've added some additional language. And in doing so, there's 2 other items that were identified for modification. One is increasing the minimum width of multi-use paths and greenway networks from 8 to 10 feet. And then secondarily, to remove sidewalks as being credited towards meeting the open space requirement. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you and the board for any particular questions you have, or if there's any further comments or items that need to be addressed.
I'll look to Stuart, since you were the one who brought up the 50-foot in either direction.
Yeah, I have no problem at all with the new wording. Where do we go from here? What's the next step for this?
So the action item for you guys would to be make a recommendation, and there's in that gray
Yes, we'll read that.
that gray box on packet page 6,
Mhm.
you could make a recommendation to adopt statement A, which would be recommendation of approval to the town council. From there, it would go and be placed in the council's agenda. There'd be a hearing, and ultimately it would be presumably acted on and incorporated into the UDO.
Okay.
Now,
All
would
right.
this apply to the application that's going to be considered on June 18th, should the council adopt? So
No.
this is,
But my understanding is, I think that they've identified, and we can ask that question of them, or it's in council's hands, but I think that they've pulled out now and their open space is compliant with the 50-foot
that's my
requirement.
understanding too.
But that no one is subject to this until it is in fact put in place.
Okay. The second thing is, I was reviewing the planning board meeting when this came up, and it seemed that Grady had some issues with the ambiguity of the language. Do we need to run this by him? I hesitate to say that but to make sure that we've removed all ambiguity from the language, because his point was any ambiguity in the language immediately reverts to the less restrictive model. I would hate to see us approve this and then find that in a legal judgment, we
Yep.
still haven't solved the ambiguity problem.
Sure. So this will be, I mean, he will see this as part of the council review.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's fine that we're adding further clarification here. I think it's, somewhat mistaken that we've gone down this path because I believe the clause in its entirety sort of, shared the intent of what this
Yeah.
provision was.
Yeah.
And
As I read it, it didn't
Yeah.
feel ambiguous
yeah,
at all.
so
Right.
This is why attorney gets paid the big money.
Right.
So
anyways, it's something that I was not necessarily involved in. Whatever, we're fixing it now, and the current application that's before the town, they're abiding by it anyways. So,
okay, all right.
That's a bonus.
Yeah. Okay.
I did speak with Ron before he left, and he had no issues with this
Yeah.
particular set. He said it was good to go.
okay.
I think it satisfies the issues
so-
that
Yeah.
both of Grady and Stewart raised.
So-
I think it's,
The motion would just be to adopt action item A.
That's
I so move.
Second.
all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Hey.
Simple as that.
Thanks, Wes.
Yes, sir.
Wes, traffic impact study discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's not a lot of discussion that we have today. Really, this is an item that the chair brought forward, knowing that he wasn't going to be here. If there's anything further you all want to add, we can have a brief discussion about it. But I do think that there's, I believe that there's some waiting to see what the county is going to do regarding this study.
Could we, just for the benefit of
Sure.
the public that we hope is
Yep.
watching, could we just get a brief summary
Sure.
of what the issue is? And
Yes.
what
So within the town of Sunset Beach, if someone is going to be required to do a traffic impact study, they must effectively defer to the rules of NCDOT, and there's a minimum trip count that has to be triggered, and that trip count for NCDOT to be involved and to require an impact study is 3,000 trips per day. At one point in time, the town considered having their own study that would be administered by the town. Ultimately, that was not implemented in the UDO for various reasons. One being, not having the expertise to administer it. And then secondarily, I think is another item that, I don't know if we talked about last time, but the town doesn't have the ability to require someone to install improvements outside of their property, and so DOT can do that. But so even if, for example, you all made someone do a traffic impact study at a 1,000 trip count, and it said, well, you've got to, increase lane width outside of your property bounds, statutorily, we can't do that. So, I mean, there's There is not a good solution to this, frankly. It's a really tricky thing to do. I can tell you that we have now on my staff, the former retired assistant planning director for the city of Wilmington. They were heavily involved in these all the time, and he cautioned, if you're going to do this, that perhaps having a third party traffic engineer on staff would be advisable. Just one, frankly, being able to understand the study, but secondarily having authority to say the town needs to accept this, because they become political footballs, as has happened in our smaller local governments that administer themselves. Nevertheless, traffic is important. The county has taken a stance that they want to see, and this is Brunswick County Incorporated, before a project is entitled, they want to see a traffic impact study done. I don't know where things are with that at the moment. I suspect there will be relatively strong amount of pushback. The county's tried to do this once already and was unable to do so. So that's perhaps.
I think that summarizes it pretty
Yeah. Okay.
pretty well.
Good question. Ron sent me a note regarding this, and he would like to have it on this next month's agenda. He made reference to an engineer, Scott James from the NCDOT. They made a presentation. Is there a way we can get a copy of that presentation?
He made
Or-
he made a presentation to you all, or
No, not to us. He would like to see it to us.
okay.
Whoever is in charge of that presentation,
It
he'd like to
was-
see it for the June meeting.
Okay.
It's
And now-
Brunswick County, I
in
think.
Brunswick County.
Brunswick. He made so part of Brunswick County is in the Wilmington MPO. That's the Urbanized Area Transportation Planning Organization. None of Sunset Beach is in GSATs, and so we would, I guess it's possible the Wilmington MPO would be willing to lend their staff to come down here, but they would certainly be under no obligation
All right,
to
it's
do
just,
so.
Um,
More likely, it would be an NCDOT rep, or perhaps someone from GSATs.
Is that possible?
We can reach out.
And then the last comment he made is that he'd like to see the recent Brunswick County text amendment regarding traffic impact.
Okay.
I would even explore, if it's a presentation they can do virtually.
Yep.
Just whatever the
Yeah.
easiest would be. Don't
Okay.
Too many hoops.
Thanks, Wes.
Yes, sir.
Right. Under new business, text amendment, the Article 3 tree preservation, and Wes, once again to you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. This item is this is a text amendment that the chairman asked to be placed on the agenda for some discussion. Effectively, this would modify the town's tree preservation and mitigation requirements to specify some level of required biodiversity or diversification of planted material on site. The chair submitted some text to the town that's been incorporated into your staff report on packet page 10. At present, we have certain requirements for tree species that have to be placed back on site for mitigating trees removed. Of those trees removed, if there are live oaks that are removed, there's a certain percentage of live oaks that need to be put back on site. Apart from that, the town does not, get into the business of telling you what trees need to be planted back on site. A recent site plan came through, and a large percentage of the trees that were planted back on site were sable palms, and there was, the chair was concerned about that. So there's now a requirement in here, or a proposed requirement, that would state that not more than 49% of any mitigation tree shall be accomplished by any single species. And so that's the amendment
Yeah,
before you.
He also like to add 6-E. He would like to have a minimum of a 2-inch DBH. There's nothing for the mitigation. It's not on there now. He wants to add. Is there a 2-inch in there? He would like to add on 6-E, which is a minimum of a 2-inch DBH for the trees.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, could we refer back to 3.34D where it's got planting material sizes and species? There's minimums.
There is minimums already.
But that's only for required landscape material. So it doesn't say, mitigation material.
That if it's a mitigation, it would be a required.
Okay.
It
So then this size of this mitigation trees would refer back to that planting material,
Yes,
which
sir.
has a minimum
Yep.
Okay.
of 2
As long as that-
DBH.
yeah.
Yep.
Is it worth?
I'm trying to look here because this is this is new to me, so I just want to make sure that I'm which page are you? Yeah, I mean on page, I guess, yeah,
363.
yeah, 363. Yeah, we have 2-inch spec'd.
2-inch, that's fine. As long as it's covered, I guess
yeah.
he wanted to make sure it was covered.
And there's more specificity about maximum, height at maturity and things like that too.
Yep.
It's relaying the message from.
Sure, understood. Yep.
All right.
So I mean, let me see. Selection of required or mitigated. I would. It would be required. If you have to mitigate something, you're required to do it, right?
Right.
But if we need to further clarify, we can add or mitigated on 37D2 or
So we're gonna,
item D2,
moved for a formal amendment next meeting.
if that's the pleasure of the board.
If you have that, Richard.
I'm sorry, say
We're
again.
going to move for a formal text amendment of this for the next meeting.
Can we talk about the paragraph right below C, which is D, that heritage trees can be granted mitigation credit?
Yeah.
Bless you. Heritage, heritage trees may be granted mitigation credit.
Mm-hmm. That's a permissive, and so I guess the reason for that, we had a lot of discussion on tree preservation when the UDO was being drafted, a significant amount, frankly. At one point in time, the town was going to consider requiring a variance anytime a heritage tree was removed. The town thought better of that, and thought, why don't we go with the carrot route, and incentivize folks to, hey, if you've got 50 inches of heritage tree, we would rather have preserved 50 inches of heritage tree than newly planted 50 inches. And so, and I think that sort of resulted in the application that's before you. From their perspective, they're trying to figure out how to save those trees so they don't have to plant them. If it just said you have to mitigate them anyways, it's possible they would have just removed those trees. And I think, at least from my standpoint, professionally, you would rather have a larger tree with an established canopy than a bunch of smaller newly planted material. So that's the reasoning and the intent behind that rule. Certainly it can be subject to modification as the board sees fit.
Well, it seems, and sometimes it's difficult to read the language and then think, okay, well, what impact will that actually have? I guess what I'm hearing is we now have evidence that the current language has resulted in the current applicant adjusting their plans to preserve heritage trees. Is that a fair summary, or am I being?
I don't want to
a little-
speak for them, but I believe that's the case because I think that from their standpoint, they're going to have difficulty mitigating, finding enough space on site, and this is one way that they can help alleviate some of that with the new material. But yes, I think that they've figured out how, hey, let's keep these so we can offset some of our mitigation of some of our smaller trees that maybe aren't going to really provide that environment anyways. If someone's removing an 8-inch tree, it's not, you would rather have a 24-inch tree there than an 8-inch, right?
Right. Okay.
So does the language satisfy you, Stuart, or?
Yeah, I just had a question. It just seemed odd that you could get credit for it, but I understand the reasoning. How much credit do they get, and what credit are they getting towards? Are they getting credit towards like street tree planting, or?
I don't recall. I need to go back and look. I think that if you take 50, say you take 50 inches out, for example, and you keep 50 inches of heritage tree, you don't have to, there's 50 inches that you don't have to put back on site.
Okay. So the 50 inches they're taking out is not heritage trees, but regulated trees.
That's correct. Smaller trees.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if you remove a heritage tree, then you have to put it back. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
So we need a motion to move for a formal text amendment for the June meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
New business. It was Richard's request to Lisa to talk about the person from the ETJ. Board member.
Thank you, Chairman. The ETJ representative is actually appointed by the county commissioners. The town council will interview, find the right person, and recommend to the county that that person be appointed. The position has been advertised. We've received no applications at all. Therefore, we don't have anybody to recommend. So if anybody knows anybody that lives in the ETJ that would like to serve on the planning board, please send me a application, resume, a letter of interest, and we will get you scheduled for interview.
Thank you.
Fair enough.
Lisa. Okay. Any other administrative comments, Lisa, at this time? Thank you. Oops,
I
I'm
mean, sorry, I have one. I mean, I guess for the final plat item next month, we can just merely add an agenda item, and then it can just be an item for discussion.
Yes, I agree. That's fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. Moving right along, we're down to number 7. Public comments. Public comments, yes. Come on up, state your name, where you're from, and there is no deliberation with the board members. I'll just remind that. And you have 3 minutes.
Bobby Leonard, 108 Discovery Lake Drive. I believe in my communication, and I might be wrong, that the TIA was implemented and is in the UDO for Brunswick County now. So it would be irresponsible for Sunset Beach not to implement the same with the high density of development we have going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Sean Arnold, SeanArnold, 101 Planters Ridge Drive. Just making sure she gets all. Are you good, Cindy? Are you good? Yeah. In regards to what Ms. Leonard said, would somebody be able to explain, not today, but maybe put something out in writing or maybe on the town website, what exactly is the TIA and what do they look at? I've looked around. I really can't see anything. There's there's talk about a TIA, and the reason why I mention this is doing a little just checking around across the street from us on 179. Excuse me, is these 3 hunks of land that have been cleared off. Talking with Brunswick County, talking with Calabash, we're looking at a minimum of 4,000 homes that are going to be built there. In that TIA, was there any way of looking at that that's going to tell us what the impact is to the town of Sunset Beach? For instance, the directly across from Sea Trail is a big hunk of area over there, and I think that's a minimum of like 1,900 homes or something. If they want to go to the beach, it's a good chance they're going to drive down Clubhouse Road to get to it. So my point being is, what did that TIA study for that tell us in regards to the town, and what are we getting ready, and what are we doing to get ready for that as far as from a planning standpoint? So that's just one thing. The other thing is there's some notes, comments in the agenda today about the depth of concrete going from 4 inches to 5 inches. We really don't have a basis to tell us why you want to do that. And I've called around, I've talked to like NCDOT, I've talked to other developments. They said you could keep it at 4 inches and you could put additives into it to get the same strength that you would at 5 inches. And there's like about 5 things you can add to concrete to do that. And I know from my past experience of construction work and things like that, I think they're called super plasticizers. There's just different kind of additives that will give you the same strength. So going from 4 inches to 5 inches, I'm told from the industry that it adds a cost to the building of something. However, 5 years from now, when that concrete, if it breaks or gets a crack in it, you then have a higher cost of the replacement of it from if you had it from 4 inches. So that I'm just kind of asking, when you think about those kind of things, think about that with your taxpayer glasses on, because eventually, one way or another, either we're going to pay for it through our taxes or we're going to pay through it for an HOA fee. And the last item is this, and this is just something to think about, take with you. As you drive down Clubhouse Road and you're heading back towards the north entrance, Riptide has done a bunch of tree planting along the edge of the roadway. You have a sidewalk, and you have the utility strip, and then you have the roadway. A bunch of tree planting, look beautiful. However, at some point, those roots are going to grow into the sidewalk and then break the sidewalk. And then that's a cost that's passed on again to either us as a taxpayer or us as a HOA people. So, and I understand that's part of the UDO to plant those trees there, and that's fine. But if there's a way to think of, and I'm pretty sure it's out there, that we could plant trees where the roots grow down instead of out. And that would be something to take into consideration. Just something to think about. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sean.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. No other public comments? Well, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.